Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
All right. So today, just a reminder, I'm Trina.
I'm Emily.
And even though we say that in the
I know,
intro.
but the thing is that on YouTube, we don't have that little...
Okay.
We don't have the verbal... So, like, if you're watching on YouTube, on the actual, like, audio part of the podcast, in the beginning, there's, like, a little intro, and it introduces us that way. So if you're listening right now, you're like, yeah, no shit, I already know who you are. Yeah. Listen to that. But we're also accommodating to our YouTube subscribers.
Right. You're right. So, okay. So I'm Trina.
Well, I'm Emily. We already said that. Now we said it 3 times. So if you don't know, then you really need some help.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So we are talking about mental health
in the school
system.
Ooh, spooky.
Oh boy. So at this point in the year, like we're this is airing on the second week of September. Mm-hmm. And by that time, it's after Labor Day. Actually,
so now we can wear white.
No, you can't after Labor Day.
I thought it was after Labor Day you could wear white.
No, it's no, now you no longer can wear white after Labor Day.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me explain this just briefly.
Okay.
This was like such a strict rule from you.
Yes, it was because of my grandmother.
Yeah. And then so recently we were like on the way to dinner or something. We were talking about white before and after Labor Day, and I was like, let me just look this up. Because I want to know, like, what rule of fashion is saying this. Because I'm like, I surely have seen some people wear white.
Plus, we're in Florida, so it's a little different.
Yeah. And that was, like, a rule in, like, the 1800s.
All right.
So we discontinued it. But now it's just
like
kind
to carry
of a joke.
on tradition.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I will be wearing white after
All
Labor
right.
Day.
Me too, because I have my favorite Converse, like platform Converse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought shoes didn't count.
Shoes count.
Okay.
Yes.
So many
shoes
rules.
count. It's all right because we're not going to abide by it. But if you're a northerner, you might, because I feel like it's more strict in northern. Not that
they
there's
get
a
pulled
police.
over and get a ticket.
A fashion police. So anyway, it's going to be airing the second week of September, and everyone should be back to school by that point. Like everybody everywhere should be back to school. Usually starts at least after Labor Day.
Yeah.
We have been in school in my area. I live, like, there's a school right behind my house. The kids start Monday.
Yeah.
Which
so
is,
does the one next to our house.
So does yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is in the middle of August. So
yeah, like I guess it's beginning.
It's
still.
August 9th.
August feels so long.
Well, August is long. It has 31 days. So anyway,
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about mental health in the school system because, well,
It's a shit show.
Yeah, it's rough. It can be rough. Mm-hmm. So I think that if your children are in the school system, or you're a teacher in the school system, or a guidance counselor, or anything that you are, if you're in the school system, you know that it is really nice to have those breaks, but people often think of those breaks as like, you're just hanging out and having fun. And the thing is that they're like, you get paid for that, but you don't get paid for that.
Also, you get paid for that is such bullshit to me because you get paid like dirt.
Like dirt. Yeah.
So like you get paid for that. You barely get paid to do your actual job during the year.
Yeah. And a lot of people take time to continue to work. I mean, I worked every summer.
Yeah.
In my classroom, at school.
Yeah.
And it was...
I recall. I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that's a misconception that people often have about teachers and people that work in education, that they are working, they get summers off and they're working, they're getting paid for free or whatever, which is just not the case. Your salary is divided up, so it's much smaller, when it's divided like that. But they do stretch it out in payments. Most school districts stretch it out so that you're... Not mine, because mine doesn't know how to divide by 24. So, but yeah, we won't even start with that. So it is, I will say it's nice to work on your own time frame and to like feel like you're in control of your schedule, because it's so micromanaged when you are teaching, but it is nice to have that little bit of downtime as far as not being micromanaged every second. And then I will say another like benefit is when you come back anew every year. Like that's a really good feeling.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm starting new, I've got a fresh class, I've got a fresh group of people that I'm working with or whatever the situation is. And so that is like, that can be really like good for your mentality.
Yeah.
So I think that's a benefit. But the hard part is often
Everything else.
And it's not like you ease into the school year. It's like,
Boom.
yeah, it's intense. It's so intense. And I've also noticed in my area, and I'm sure this is true for other people, that principals that are not considering their staff like needs and their staff's their downtime. They're not they're like expecting them to like meet with kids and like
You mean like during the summer?
during the summer, yeah. So the school near me is like all the first grade teachers, they're going to meet at the park. So all your first graders, if you're at this school, then come at the park on this one day. Yes. So there's expectation.
Like as a required thing?
It is expected that you attend. So yes.
So it's like that. It's frowned upon.
Yeah,
if
it's
you
frowned
don't
upon
come.
if you don't come. And the motto of the school is family. Like that's what they put first is family and whatever the other two I can't remember.
I'd be like, you can frown upon me then.
It's everyone else's family. It's not the actual school system's family.
Yeah.
That they care about. So I think that's just, I mean, I understand sometimes you might want to do that as a teacher. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do that.
Make that your choice.
Yeah, but not that it's an expectation or that you are looked at badly
if you
don't want to come. I think there's stages of life for people. And when you have kids in the school system, maybe you want to be a part of it because your kids are excited. But when you're older or younger or you don't have kids or whatever your situation, maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not just that. It's also they expect you to do some kind of professional development, often without paying you. They expect you to meet with your teams at least once, not without paying you once again. And so I think that's just, we're talking about 2 to 3 days of them asking for something beyond what you already give. What you already give is beyond what you're ever paid for. So I think that is hard. It's a hard mentality. And some people take it better than others. Some people are like, yes, I would love to do a team builder when I should be setting up my classroom. And other people are like, no, this is really annoying. I need to get to work and you're preventing me from getting to work. There's so many ways of looking at it because team builders can be really positive. But it's when you're working in such a scarcity situation, it's hard for you to be asked to do more and more. I think that's really the problem.
Yeah. And I also, one thing that we have talked about extensively is the fact that like because like teachers and even administrators and up like aren't taking care of their mental health or aren't being taken care of, like that all bleeds into the students. Like students feel so intensely, like they know when things are hard, whether they understand it or not. So like that's why I feel like so strongly about it being such a systemic issue, because it's like you could say like, oh well, this school doesn't do this or whatever, but if we're not providing care for teachers and we're not providing care for the people who are caring for them and the people who are caring for them, then like it's not going to work. Like it's the chain reaction to that. So like the students are feeling that. And then that's also like not having that kind of care for the people that you're paying, like becomes like the baseline. And then that's how it is for the kids too. Because mental health counseling in school sucks. Like it's terrible. I have experienced it from multiple different grade levels and it's all been horrible. Like there's never been a time where I'm like, yeah, this was the best experience. Like I had somebody when I was in elementary school who did really care about me, but I just don't think that they were well equipped enough to be able to spot things that they could have if they were at a higher level. And that's not even putting her down. It's just like, again, she wasn't provided the resources that she should have been. And then when I was in middle school, no one cared at all. That was when they basically were like, well, too bad, so sad, move on.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, it was like they were telling me that I wasn't doing enough, basically, and that I was gonna, they literally told me like I was gonna fail if I didn't go to college. So like, if that is the basis for all of mental health in the school, like, no freaking wonder everything's a crap show afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, you're starting from the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not taking care of all the people. And in defense of school counselors, because I know school counselors, most of them want to be school counselors. They want to actually counsel students.
Yeah.
They want to work with groups of kids. They want to push into classrooms. They want to be there for individual kids. They have a heart for children. But what has happened is the school counselor role has become a guidance counselor, which is more of a test proctor and I got to work out the testing situation, which is ridiculous.
Such a waste of their skills.
Such a waste of skills. And they are given more and more responsibilities that fall outside of like actually counseling the students. So some of it's not even their fault. It's the position that they're put in. And so I think that, and when people are like, this is not my problem, I don't work in the school system, it's all of our problems when it comes to how it impacts the children. And also, I mean, when people say that, I'm like, I always feel bad when I hear that people in other professions are being treated in an oppressive manner.
Yeah.
If I hear about oppression, then I feel like
it should be all of our problem.
Yeah, I feel like, oh,
that's like being like, if like when, I don't know, like sex trafficking still happens.
Yeah.
Being like, oh well, it doesn't happen to me, so it's not my problem. Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a pretty big problem for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything that's impacting, the future generation, we should be invested. And I mean, you're right. It does start with, we've got to take care of our leaders, our school leaders. We have to, respect and treat them kindly and well, and also provide mental health resources for them. And then we want that same expectations of those people to do to teachers, because administrator, they can make or break a school experience. And administrators that are really gung-ho with family and community, that's great. But if you're not really gung-ho on taking care of your teachers, you're actually hurting your community. And when your just expectations is constantly more, that's not helping. That doesn't help at all. In fact, I had an administrator once who he came to our school, and he was very, like, I remember when it was open house night and it was like 7:00, which is when it's supposed to end. Never before had anyone told parents like, let's go, time's up.
Yeah.
They just trickled in and out. We were there. We weren't leaving until like 8:00 at night. Well, this administrator got on the announcements, is like, we're going to turn on the code in 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes to leave. I mean, he didn't say it meanly. He was like, we're so glad you came out tonight. We just got to get our teachers home. The code, the alarm is going on in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll see you on Monday, really nice. And I remember being like, I wanted to start crying.
Yeah.
That one little simple act of kindness, it was so impactful to me. And I mean, I have, 25 plus years in education.
Yeah.
It was something I still remember because it was like he cared about us. He wanted us to go home. He didn't want us to get stuck, because it happens all the time where you get stuck with a parent who is talking and talking and talking and talking. And you're like, it's 7:30. I got to go. I have to put my own children to bed.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's so nice when we've got people that are taking care of you. And I'm not even asking them to give us like activities for our mental health. I'm asking them to show some simple kindness.
Yeah.
Just some respect and decency.
Yeah.
And not always these expectations of, what are you doing wrong? Even as far as observations go. I think principals could get so much more information about what's happening in a classroom by teaching it themselves. I think they should go in and read books inside of a classroom. You would get so much information. You would know how the classroom works as a community. You would know how kids ask and answer questions. You would know how like routines and systems are in place.
Yeah.
You would know the behavior of the kids, because is this the expectation that the teacher normally has? There's so much information you can get just by doing it yourself. And then you don't have somebody that's on display for you, which is so, it's the worst feeling to feel like someone's watching you while you do your job.
You feel like you have to do everything different.
You feel like you're doing a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
It's very and even it's a lot of pressure, and then you have to be hitting all these marks on an evaluation sheet, and it's very stressful. And teachers work so hard on that, and then it's just a really stressful moment that I feel like an administrator could get so much information just reading a book to the class themselves, and they could see. And then we wouldn't have, I don't even think this is necessary anyway, like I think there's got to be another way that we take, I mean, what about even questioning kids, like, how they feel about their teachers? I mean, obviously this looks different in high school than it does in elementary school, because you're going to get more honest answers from younger kids probably about that. I mean, older kids, if they don't like their teacher and things like that. So I think there's just got to be a better way. We just don't have to do everything exactly the same. We just find a different way to honor the people that work in our system.
Yeah, it's just another example of like this all or nothing, black and white kind of mentality that I think really just takes over the world.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm being honest, because it's like you're trying to almost like streamline and make something the same for something that's never going to be all the same. Like, it's just like you're asking for an impossible result, and then you're getting mad when you don't get the result that was impossible to get in the first place.
Well, you're asking, it's like an oxymoron. You're asking schools to standardize so that everything's the same, and then you're asking them to differentiate so that they're meeting the needs of all children. You can't do both of those things at the same time.
No.
So it's like it's like use your right hand, use your left hand. What? So it's just it makes it so difficult. So okay, so what are some things that people can do in a school system? What can teachers do in order to take care of themselves, and our administrators to take care of teachers, and so on and so on? What are some things? I mean, I think what I said about simple acts of kindness really go a long way.
For sure. Yeah. I also feel like, and I know that this is a hard thing for teachers, but like saying no sometimes.
Yeah.
I know that like is like, oh my God, like that sounds like the end of the world. But like, if you don't want to go to that expected family thing, or you have plans, or even if you don't have plans, no, sorry, I can't make it.
Yep.
And then just being okay if that's frowned upon.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because to me, I'm
take
like,
the pressure off of yourself.
Yeah.
Set
like,
your boundaries and stick to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because first of all, if you're going and you're begrudgingly there, no one that's not benefiting anyone. And also, if you say no and somebody's mad about it, what does that mean? Like, you're probably not going to get fired. Also, let's say you do get fired. Then maybe, like, this is a sign that you shouldn't be in that space to begin with, which I know is like, whoa, like, that's an extreme and a big thing to say and easy for me to say sitting here. But I just feel like you don't have to live in this scarcity of like, what if I get fired if I don't do this?
There's so much fear attached to this profession. Yeah. There's so much fear. Like you'll be fired. You'll be charged with a 3rd-degree felony if you give them the wrong book. That's what's happening in our state. Like,
so ridiculous.
There's so much fear. Like, you're going to get in trouble if you don't do this. It really is like such a authoritative type of, I don't think that's how you get people to do things. I don't think that's how you get people to follow things. And they temporarily, it might work, but it's not a long-term solution. But I don't know if they're looking for long-term solutions, because most people don't even stay in teaching more than 5 years. Like, it's a huge percentage of people that leave the profession at 5 years. And so but and speaking of leaving the profession, I think that there's a shortage. So right now, this is the best time for teachers to set boundaries because they need you. So there's a current shortage, and they're going to take what they can get. And so if you're pushing back at a time when they need us, that's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because you have a little more leverage.
Yeah.
And taking care of yourself is a priority.
Yeah. It's almost like as a teacher, you have to go into it with the mindset of like, I am the abundance. And like, if I say no and then they decide that they don't need me, then something better is coming to me.
Yeah.
Like it's and I know how easy it is to say that versus to do it, but it's like you have to put that into practice and believe in yourself enough that like if somebody is going to dispose of you for something that you do that's good for your mental health, then something better is
for
you.
around the corner.
Yeah, and like you weren't meant to be there in the first place.
And you're going to show up abundantly in your classroom anyway. So you show up abundantly in the parts where you're supposed to, or where you're contracted to, or where you feel are important for you. But then you say no to the things that are extra or that you don't necessarily have to do because you're also taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I mean, I remember coming home every single day with like mounds of things to do, and you're taking away time from your own family.
Yeah.
From your own marriage, from your own kids.
I used to help you grade papers.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So, I mean,
am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just think it's so important for teachers to be able to take care of themselves. And also for people, like you start setting those kind of boundaries and people start going, okay. And they stop asking you to do those kinds of things. And they, whether they leave you alone or not, I don't know. It's like, it's just such a system. But I also think it's okay to want to do some of those things. Like it doesn't make you, wrong because you want to spend extra time doing, it really, it's on your timetable.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part is that you get to decide do I want to go to give this or do I not want to? Whether you do or don't it's not relevant. It's what you decide.
Yeah.
I think when you're true to yourself, and that's another thing, like teachers are often asked not to be true to what they believe. Like they're asked to do things that they feel is hurting children. And I don't mean like physically hurting them, but I mean, asking them to put kids on programs for 30 minutes a day where kids are crying. Like that no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do things that are hurting kids. And when they ask you to do that kind of stuff, it feels like it's very demoralizing. They're not taking your judgment into consideration. They're not taking your expertise. Well, they never take your judgment or expertise into consideration. So even some of those kinds of things, if we did better with that, if we actually listened to a teacher, took their expertise, trained them, gave them the training, gave them the tools, and then trusted them, it would be a whole different world.
Yeah. And I feel like there's so many things that should be changed in like the system, but it's like obviously like that'll take a long time.
It's definitely needs a complete rehaul. It needs a complete rehaul. It can't even just be slightly adjusted. It needs a complete rehaul.
Yeah. And like while teachers who are in the classroom right now are in it, I think it's important to also to like support each other.
Yeah.
Because like
because they pit you against each other.
Yeah.
They put you on these graphs and they put your class scores on these graphs and they compare you and then they say things about this
it's
team
like
or that
real life
team.
social media.
It really is. It's a really it's like they don't want you to like each other. So if you're competitive or if you're competing with one another, that's the goal. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because if you compete, then you'll work harder. How about we focus on collaborating?
Yeah.
How about we focus on like boosting one another up? Because this is a predominantly, female-based job, and we are just stepping over each other. Like, what if we actually like lifted each other
Yeah.
up. It would really make a huge difference too. So I think there's some things that we have control over as well.
Yeah. I think it's just so, and you know this better than
Yeah.
anyone, it's so hard
It's so
because
hard.
it's like you're kind of in a position of like, this is extreme, but being brainwashed into thinking you have to do
Yeah.
this or that. But I think it's just so important before you go in or at the beginning of the school year, which is where whoever is listening to this now is like to start off wherever you are, even if you're listening to this halfway through the school year. Start now. Start being kind to someone else, like doing that to other people, like just in small ways. Like you're also like you're teaching by example. So like even if you just pop in and say hi to like people on your grade level every morning, wish them a good day, like that probably would take you like 10 minutes.
Except for you end up getting stuck in their classroom and
Or send them a text.
Yeah.
Like have a
Yeah.
group chat and say good morning, like I hope everybody has a great day.
Yeah.
Like, or what's one thing we can all support each other with, like something like that would be so small and also just increase the work environment,
Yeah,
which
the morale.
is
The morale is really takes their beating. And the hardest times are at the beginning of the year and the end of the year.
Yeah.
They're just there's so much to do. And that's another thing. Like if we took some of these to-do items off of their list, we took them off of the teacher. We don't need to have them because some of them it feels like busy work. So it's like some things do you really need this? Do you really need to have this? Or we need to simplify. I don't know. I just think there's a lot that can be done to help teachers. All right. So we've talked about teachers and educators in the workforce, but what about, or in education, but what about the kids? Like what are some, like, if you have a child who is super anxious to go to school and they, or don't want to go to school, or they're having feelings of anxiety or depression, what are some things we can do for them?
Yeah, I think this is hard. I feel like this is a harder answer in my mind because I was that kid when I was in 6th grade. Like I didn't want to go to school at all. Like it sounded horrible to me. But
And you grew up in a school, so it's like, wow.
Yeah, and
Is this before like the bullying thing, or you felt this way all along in 6th grade?
I feel like it was a little bit of both, but then there were definitely moments where I felt like that in high school, like where I like did not want to go to school, like everything in me, like I was like, oh, like I just hate this. So it was like on and off, and I think like one thing that is not done enough that I think you did really well was that like my mental health was treated as like my overall health. So like on a day where I was like, I am like so anxious and upset and tired and I just can't do it, like that was a sick day. Like I was allowed, like obviously like I wasn't staying home for a week at a time, like just doing nothing. But like if I needed a Monday to like recover from the thought of going to school, then like every once in a while that was okay.
Yeah.
Because like your mental health is your health too.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that like parents can try to be a more considerate of, but it's also hard for me to say that because a lot of parents have to work so much that it's like, okay, well, what if my kid's not old enough? What do I do with that? Like there's so many layers to it, but I do think like
But giving them a mental health day.
Yeah.
Every so often.
Yeah.
Giving them, no, I think that's a great idea.
And like actually like, and not being like, oh, well, let's make sure you have your homework done for this and that. Like actually giving them like a day off, like of school and like doing something like self-care worthy, like actually going outside and being away from like a computer or like watching a movie with them or like something like that is
a break,
giving them a break,
an actual break. Yeah. I think that's the expectations that are going on right now in schools are so high. The expectations are so high.
Yeah.
And we're definitely teaching towards the school type of kid, the the kid that thrives in school and is like, higher achieving, and we're just leaving the rest of the people behind. And we're focusing only on one way. Like, school is great for you, but maybe school could be great for people that learn better by moving if we actually allowed them to move some more. So I think those, I could go on and on about that, so I won't go down a rabbit hole. Taking a break is essential, and I think that's essential for kids. I think it's okay for kids to miss school periodically, not all the time.
Yeah.
But because you don't want to be lost and confused and just make it worse.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to just put it down and take a little break every now and then. And I think teachers should do the same thing.
I agree.
I think teachers should take mental health days.
I think everyone should do that.
I do too, because sometimes you just need a reset.
Yeah.
And or you just need to lay on the couch and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's
not
okay.
have to think about what's coming tomorrow.
What's coming tomorrow? All the things that I have to do.
Yeah.
Like, actually just putting that down and not carrying it. I think that's a really good idea. I also think that even having, if your child is super anxious about school, communicating this. Yeah. Communicate this with your child's teacher. Sometimes I used to feel like I remember having a student whose mom had cancer, and they didn't tell me. I found out like months down the line somehow, but not from the family. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, I felt like I treated my students with kindness, but you're going to give a little bit of extra care and love to someone who's struggling with that at home.
Yeah.
And also it helps you become aware of their behavior. Are they isolating themselves? Are they not getting along? Are they growing angry easily? Like, let me recognize some things that are happening and understand and have some grace. I just think communicating is really important. And I had a student, I remember this is another student I had, who his brother, and I had his brother as well. His brother had leukemia when he was young. So the little brother was dealing with this, the family was dealing with this, and they left him at school, at daycare, wherever he was. Well, they got interrupted because of like a medical emergency, and they didn't get to the younger kid. Like, he felt like he was waiting, like they forgot him. They felt like they forgot him. So he had a lot of leaving anxiety. And I remember his mom coming to me. I mean, I'd had the older brother, so we had a relationship. She came to me, we talked about it. And I went out of my way every day to like excite him when I saw him, to get him to want to come into the classroom, and to help break that separation anxiety that he was having. And he did. Yeah. It worked. And so it was just a matter of communicating that. And, or, even finding another, like a school counselor or the ESC specialist or the assistant principal or somebody that can check in, once a day or something like that. Now, that's hard to do. I know that there's so many kids.
Fight for that.
Yeah, there's so many kids. You're right. You do have to fight for that. But like sometimes
it's worth it.
Sometimes, yeah, especially if you have a really high anxiety. What's another thing that we can do for kids that really struggle with like feeling like school is not a place for them?
It's hard because I'm like, this is another part where I'm like, this is a systemic issue in and of itself, because I, as someone who thought it was a place for them and then didn't, like it was almost like putting the scarlet letter on at that point. Like, you're very like isolated and secluded, not only by like administration but teachers too. Like, as soon as I figured out like I'm not gonna go to college, like I don't really want to do that, and maybe I will one day, who knows, like I was just whatever. Like, I had teachers tell me, well, then you're gonna work at McDonald's and you're not gonna be successful. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's horrible. That's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. And maybe somebody's dream is to work at McDonald's. All power to you. But that was not my dream.
We're not going to say, we have to recognize as adults, whether you're a teacher or not, that the words that we say to children impact them, and it impacts them greatly. And when
Yeah.
people say things like "you're gonna fail," "you're gonna be a loser," like my brother had someone say that he was gonna be a loser, like he was gonna go nowhere. Well, he proved them wrong.
Yeah.
But it's
kidding.
like you don't want to have those kinds of things in your mind where
Yeah.
you're constantly feeling like you have to prove somebody wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's awful. Like that's
Yeah.
an awful thing to say to a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they don't do what you think is right, that doesn't make them wrong.
It's none of your business to tell them that,
Yeah.
though. Like,
Yeah.
you're not their parent. Like, you're their you are just their teacher. Like, you're an impactful person in their life, but like it is not your job to dictate what they do and don't do with their decisions, like as long as they're safe and like cared for and like doing doing
Yeah.
the best they can in school. But like, I mean, I even had a teacher, we had an exchange student from Spain, and she was a model. She was very pretty, very sweet girl. And my teacher was like, yeah, like she's just like so beautiful. Like, I've never seen someone so beautiful like that. And then she like looked at me and my friend at the time and was like, well, my friend, she was like, well, like, you're also beautiful like that. And she's like, you're pretty, but not in that way to me.
you?
And I remember being like, well, what the fuck is that supposed
That's
to mean?
not even true.
Like, it was very much like, I mean, I think I was like 16 or 17. Like, what a horrible thing to say to a teenage girl in high school.
Yeah.
Like, then you're literally pitting girls against each other.
Well, no kidding.
Like,
what an awful thing to say.
yeah.
I just don't think that people are thinking sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm like, stuff like that, I feel like I had really good relationships with some of my teachers throughout all of my like school life. But I think that there tends to be a boundary overstepping with teachers sometimes, where they feel like the student is their friend. And that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Because as much as you may like adore and love one of your students, like, they're not your friend.
Yeah.
Like, they're not your cohort that you can just talk about your life with. Like, they're
too young.
like, these are children
Yeah.
that like are impressionable and like still are not developed
Their
all the way.
prefrontal cortex is not developed until you're 25 fully.
Yeah.
So they're not capable of handling those kind of emotions on top of what they're already dealing with and their own emotions.
Yeah. So I feel like it's important, like, if you're a teacher and you feel like you tend to talk to kids who want to listen to you, then maybe it's time that you find a counselor for yourself, and not in a way that's like, that's a judgment or a shameful thing. You have relationships with kids that are strong. That's great. But you need to make sure that your boundaries you're not stepping over their boundaries as children, and that you're talking to somebody who listens, who isn't an adolescent, because like, it's not a child's job to take on any of your feelings, thoughts, or emotions.
Yeah.
They've got plenty going on for
themselves. That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. I just think we just have to be careful. I think we have to be careful with what we say to one another, the things that the expectations that we have on ourselves and on other people. I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, also just doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Like, it being okay if you're not perfect student or teacher or administrator, whatever.
Yeah. You don't have to be. You don't have to be perfect. I also think if you have a child that's like super stressed about school, make sure that they also get a boundary. Like, if school is a place that doesn't feel super happy, then make home or sports or dance or art or whatever the happy part.
Yeah, something that they get
something
to do.
that they can look forward to and get to move into, and that their whole world isn't consumed by the zone of drudgery. Like, have a limit on homework and talk to teachers about that. They've spent an hour on this. They're not spending any more than this. They already are there for 7.5 hours a day. And
I used to have to spend
so
so
much
much
time doing homework.
time
I know,
on
I
homework.
remember.
I would stay up
I
till
mean,
like
I had
1
parents
a.m.
complain about me not giving enough homework. And I remember being like, here you go. Here's a helpful thing called Google. So if you want more, you can certainly do more. I'm not stopping you from doing more, but I'm not going to assign more.
Yeah.
Because, well, my philosophy was I expect kids to work hard when they're in school, and then I want them to go home and be a kid. Because I think there's many facets to a person than just the thing that they're doing. That's true for us in our jobs as well. I want to teach kids to have like a work-life balance. Like we're going to work here, but then they're going to go home and they're going to do something else.
Yeah.
Because we're not exercising all of our creative muscles and our critical thinking muscles and our, our other types of
Yeah.
personality. And then we've got kids that don't know what to do. They get to college and they don't know what they want to do because they haven't experienced anything else.
Yeah.
It's all just been about school and nothing has been about what they love. So I think if your child is stressed at school, obviously talk to the teacher, obviously talk to the school counselor, maybe even a counselor for your family.
Yeah.
And then allowing them to set boundaries. I'm going to, allot an amount of time that you're going to work on homework and that's it.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you're not going to do it beyond that because actually there's a lot of research that indicates that it's not even helpful, not even in high school. So it's not helpful at least until high school. But it does nothing for a child in the early grades. And people are like, well, teach them responsibility. I would rather they learn responsibility by doing their chores.
I was going to say, clean your room
or feeding
clean
the dog
bathroom
or
something.
picking up after themselves or something like that. They don't need to learn responsibility with extra homework. I don't need to learn how to do my job by spending extra time on my own time learning about my job.
Yeah.
So and maybe I do, but I don't. I think there's got to be a
Or maybe
break.
you just need different training.
Yes, maybe you do need different training.
If you need to give that much homework, then like, what are you doing? Like, what is the kid doing during school?
That's true. That's another question. Are they unable to finish their assignments in class? Is there any time for them to do some of that? So these are all conversations you want to have if your child is struggling with anxiety around school.
Yeah.
Really offering them a safe space outside of school is a huge thing.
Yeah. And one more thing too that I feel is important because like I'm thinking about, the kids I work with at church, like the students that I work with who are high school, middle school age, and like the common thing that I see in like their stress and anxiety is that they feel like their parents just aren't listening to them. Like that, or like when they tell their parents like they have this kind of problem, their parents like, oh, well, that's not that big of a deal. Because to an adult, a 13-year-old who's having a problem with a boy they liked for 2 seconds seems so little, but that's their whole world right now.
Yeah.
Like you, as a parent, like you have so much going on and like they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. And not because they don't care about you, not because they don't love you, not because they don't respect you, and not because they're not paying attention, because they're still a kid.
Yeah.
And it is your job as a parent to listen sometimes and just listen.
Yeah.
And not have to be like, oh, well, you didn't do this in this situation, or you didn't listen to my advice with it. Like, don't make it always about them being in trouble or like going against something you've said. Like, just listen to them.
Yeah.
Like, give them a place to talk. It also like will help you in the future for if they are in trouble. They'll feel like they can come to you.
Yeah.
But I've just seen so many kids, they're like, I'm like, well, have you, like, we're guided to tell them, like, have you talked to your parents about this? So that way we can open up that space for them at home. And a lot of the time, like, I hear like, oh yeah, but like my mom's just going to be really mad, like, if I tell her this, or like my dad doesn't care, like he thinks it's like it's not a big deal, or like if I tell my mom, she's going to tell my dad and he's going to get mad, and then we're all going to be in like, it's like a mess. They like want to avoid a mess. When it's like, this problem that you're telling me is not, it's not an end of the world problem, but it is a your world problem. And your world, their world should matter to you.
For sure.
So, like, I feel like that's something that I think, I even want to be conscious of with the kids that I talk to, is I'm like, this may not seem big to me, but it's so big to them. And it's important that somebody just shows that they're willing to listen and to care about it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what a lot of us need. It's like some affirmation.
Yeah.
And somebody listening to us and hearing us and understanding us is a huge thing.
Yeah. And also, if you give that space to your kid, like, they could probably give that space to you at some point.
And they will come to you when they need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was anxiety and stress in the school environment.
Yeah.
We didn't even cover half of it.
I know. I was like, that was just the tip of the
I
iceberg.
could feel myself getting irritated, and I'm like, I'm going to keep myself under control today. So.
Well, do you want to end on our high and low? Because we didn't even.
Yeah, you're right. All right.
Let's
end on our. I like that.
Okay. You want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Okay. So my high for this week
Wait, no, start with your low.
my low.
So you can end on a high note.
My low for the week is, well, at this time, hopefully we won't have another tropical storm, but we just had a tropical storm.
I feel like we probably will.
Yeah, we'll probably have plenty more tropical storms, but we just had a tropical storm that was pretty massive. There's a lot.
Turned into a hurricane.
It was. Oh, did it?
Oh yeah, category 1.
There's a lot of flooding in my area, like just 5 minutes down the street, like massive flooding.
Yeah, for us too.
Yeah, and so people have been without their power, and they've been, some people like lost their house. Like it's been pretty massive, and just the constant rain and dreary has really impacted my mood. Like it's
depressing.
It's depressing. So that's been my low. And then my high is, despite that, I was able to get everything done off my calendar and to-do list this week, and I finished at 11:25 on a Friday. I was like, yes,
That's
I know.
so nice.
It was such a good feeling. I haven't done that in so long, so it felt really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think my low would also consist of the tropical storm, just because. And I did talk to Jake about this before saying this on the podcast, but he was home on Monday. Hi, Kobe. If you're watching on YouTube, then you can see another puppy guest. Jake was home on Monday because of the tropical storm, and I love having Jake home, but it throws my schedule off completely, because then, like, I have to kind of coordinate with him of like when we're gonna eat meals, or like if I'm like, could you take Daisy out actually, like, or like if he's just lounging around, like I want to be lounging around. So it threw my, especially on a Monday, like I like to have my Monday be very routine and like I'm gonna get into it. Okay. So like starting my week like that was a little bit
rough.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite thing. My high was last night I took myself on a date. Yeah. It was
you went
so
to see,
nice.
This is This Ends With Us. Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. It was, I honestly feel like one of the best movies from a book that I've seen in a long time. Like, I don't really feel like they left out anything important. I think the acting was actually really good, which I was a little bit surprised about because I was slightly concerned. But everybody in it was great, and I like cried multiple times during it. And yeah, I don't know, there was one scene that I was telling Jake about, and this is kind of a spoiler alert. So if you don't want to know about this, then this is basically the end of the podcast. So just see you later. Yeah. But in the book, there is a scene where the main character, Lily, gets hit by Ryle, the guy that she's with, like when he's taking something out of the oven, like he hits her. And in the book, you're kind of confused, like, was it an accident? Like, you can't tell because this is the first offense of, like, when the abuse starts. And I remember in the book thinking, like, I have a feeling it wasn't an accident, but the author was portraying it as if, like, they were trying to convince us that it was an accident because she was trying to convince that of herself. Yeah. And in the movie, one thing that they did was like they showed that scene how Lily portrayed it, which was like as an accident, like just how it was written in the book. And then towards the end, when like one of the worst things happens and she's like flashing back to all the memories, it shows that he actually did hit her like in an aggressive manner. And like it wasn't how like Lily hoped that it was, and that she was trying to convince herself that it was. And I thought that was such an interesting thing to add into the movie, because I was like, it like was
clarified,
validating to like you're like questioning in the book. And I just thought that that was just such a good addition. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I ate a lot of popcorn and had some gummy worms.
Yay.
It was nice.
How fun.
And I had my glasses on while I was there. I could see everything so clear. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was good. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
All right.
See you next Monday for Mind Your Heart.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.